It was just before sunrise in Brazoria County, Texas. The sky was still a pale gray and the streets were quiet, the kind of silence only broken by the distant hum of crickets and the occasional passing truck. At 6:42 a.m., a 911 dispatcher received a call. The kind of call no one ever forgets. A woman's voice, trembling, breathless, almost detached. She said there had been a shooting, a modest suburban street lined with identical homes and sleeping families. They expected to find the aftermath of a domestic dispute, maybe a break-in gone wrong. But what they found instead was a mother standing outside her car, staring blankly at four small bodies inside, two of them already gone. Two more clinging to life, her name, Oninda Romelus, 31 years old, once a quiet, church-going mother of four. That morning, she didn't run. She didn't scream. She simply waited, hands shaking, eyes fixed on the car, and when police asked what happened, she said something that would haunt investigators for weeks to come. They're with the devil now. In that single sentence, an entire community's sense of safety collapsed. How could a mother, a woman who once appeared on national television smiling beside her children, commit something so unthinkable? What pushed her to that edge between love and madness? Was it faith, fear, or something far darker? Over the next few minutes, we'll peel back every layer of this tragedy, from the moments leading up to the shooting to the chilling statements she made afterward, to understand why a mother of four believed her own children were better off dead. Because sometimes, the scariest crimes aren't committed by strangers in the dark, but by the people we trust to love us the most. To the outside world, Oninda Romelus seemed like many other mothers doing their best in a difficult world. A single mom raising four children, trying to keep life together amidst pressure and unseen burdens. But who was she before that tragic morning? And what led her from a life of ordinary struggles to a moment that defied understanding? The public record is sparse on her childhood. There are few reliable details about her upbringing, her parents, or her early years in Texas or elsewhere. What we do know is that by her early 30s, she had faced enough challenges to leave her mark. She had made headlines before. Years ago, she appeared as a contestant on the television program Paternity Court. In that courtroom setting, questions were raised about paternity, responsibility, and parental identity, issues she would carry with her long beyond the cameras. In many photos shared in media coverage, we see a woman smiling, posed with her children, confident in public. But behind the lens, there were cracks beginning to show. Those who knew her described Oninda as soft-spoken, devoted, and quietly religious. In interviews, neighbors recall a woman who attended church, greeted people politely, and often did her best to hide her struggles. She wasn't known as an angry or aggressive person, at least not publicly. Her life seemed tethered to faith, to family, to the belief that she could keep it all together. But faith and silence can be a dangerous pair when the inner storms go unspoken. Some public records show that Romulus had legal brushes in the past. For instance, in April 2022, she was arrested in Fayette County, Georgia, on charges including DUI, drugs, failure to maintain lane, and possession of less than 1 ounce of marijuana. She later pleaded guilty to the DUI charge. The other charges were reportedly dropped or dismissed. That incident might appear small in isolation, but for someone under strain, even small legal troubles can pile into shame, stress, and deeper instability. We also know that Child Protective Services, CPS, had previous contact with her family, though the details of that interaction remain confidential. That means the system may have seen signs before, and yet, the full picture remained hidden. Imagine the weight she carried. 4 children, each with needs, fears, dreams. The constant juggle, meals, school, bills, doctor's visits, emotional well-being. For many single parents, this is a full-time crisis. On good days, she may have laughed with her kids, tucked them into bed, and whispered prayers. On harder days, exhaustion, fear, isolation whispered back. Even in her more stable moments, there were hints of internal strain, occasional legal issues, previous CPS involvement, and the pressures of raising a family alone. These are not excuses, but they are context. Because when something shatters from the inside, it rarely does so without warning signs. And over the next few minutes, we will see how those cracks turned into fractures, how Oninda's life spiraled into a moment none could have foreseen. Somewhere between her public persona and that fateful dawn, Oninda's world turned inward and darker. To understand how far that turn went, we must first see who she was in relation to her children, and how the weight of life pressed on her until something inside began to fracture. She had 4 children in the car that morning. 2 would lose their lives. 2 would survive, wounded in body and perhaps forever wounded in spirit. The eldest among them was Ocario Covington, 13 years old, a teenager on the cusp of adolescence, navigating school, friendships, identity. He was the child once at the center of a paternity court episode, seeking to know who his father was. The youngest was Amura Chappelle, just 3 years old, innocent, a toddler who should have had decades ahead of her. Her life was cut short in the tragedy. The 2 survivors, as reported, were an 8-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. Their names have been less publicly discussed, possibly out of respect for privacy during recovery. We don't have thick public records about their personalities, but from photos, snippets in the media, we see a family trying to hold together. Birthday parties, school portraits, quiet smiles. Running a household of 4 children is seldom forgiving. Bills must be paid, meals prepared, school drop-offs, doctor's visits, extracurriculars. Every day is a puzzle of logistics and emotion. And as a single mother, Oninda would have carried that load on her own shoulders. In interviews with law enforcement, it emerged that Child Protective Services had prior contact with her family. The specifics remain under seal, but that means someone outside their home had already raised concerns. Financial instability has also been mentioned in passing in reports, though we do not have full visibility into her income, debts, or support systems. It is common in such high-stress cases that economic strain acts as a silent pressure cooker. Then there was the issue of identity and documentation. After the shooting, investigators raided her home and discovered stacks of identification documents, social security cards, credit cards, and equipment possibly used to manufacture or modify identity credentials. That suggests an undercurrent of tension around how she presented herself, how she lived her life. Possibly a secret anxiety about who she was or where she stood in society. Years before the tragedy, Oninda's name reached a national audience through an episode of Paternity Court. There, the dispute centered on paternity of her son, Ocario. In the show, she revealed she had relationships with 2 men, Dwayne Seymour and Jeremy Covington, and was uncertain which was the father. Neither man proved to be the biological father. That moment placed her in the crosshairs of public scrutiny, and possibly forced her to always keep up appearances, privately and publicly. Within the timeline leading to the shooting, subtle signs appear in court documents and investigators' notes. On arrival, police noted Oninda appeared paranoid, incoherent, and detached. When pressed why she called 911, she alternated between denial and cryptic statements, including, "Instead of them doing it to me, I'm going to do it to them." And when asked to clarify, she allegedly responded with, "Kill them all." Investigators also recorded that she said her children were dead to her and with the devil. These are stark, chilling words. But what do they reflect? Are they the ramblings of a mind in breakdown, or a symbolic framework through which she tried to make sense of internal pain. Around the time of the incident, surveillance video and court documents show she stopped at a gas station, made a 911 call, then backed away from police, offering little coherent explanation. It is in these moments, the backward glance, the silence after a phrase, the hesitation, that a family dynamic warps into a crisis. A mother once trying to do right, now speaking in darkness. The morning of October 4th, 2025 in Brazoria County, Texas. What should have been a routine early hour instead became a nightmare. According to law enforcement reports and affidavits, Oninda Romelus called 911 at approximately 4:45 a.m., asking for help, though what she asked for was not immediately clear. Within minutes, deputies from the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office were on their way, but by then, the damage had already been done. The scene was a Shell gas station in Angleton, off State Highway 288, between FM 521 and Highway 288B. It was still dark. The sky was just beginning to hint at dawn. Romulus allegedly drove there in a vehicle with the engine running. All doors opened. 2 of her children were already dead, 2 wounded. Investigators reviewed surveillance video of the gas station. In the footage, she first pulls in, pumps gas, about $56 worth. She walks around, peers into the rear windows of the car, stands by the driver's side, returns to the car, and remains inside for a moment on the phone. It was in this state, car doors open, motion inside, that deputies eventually arrived. The deputies' report describes a chilling scene. One child's body was halfway out of the front passenger door, legs still inside the vehicle, upper torso, and head on the ground. 2 of the children showed no signs of life. 2 others were gravely injured and flown to a hospital. The children were aged 13, 8, 9, and 3. The 13-year-old boy and the 3-year-old girl were killed. The 8-year-old boy and 9-year-old girl survived and were airlifted to a Houston hospital, listed as serious but stable. After deputies arrived, Romulus was read her Miranda rights. She appeared paranoid about her surroundings. The complaint says she was talking on her phone, standing outside the car, walking around, peering inside the car. Behavior that witnesses later described as disoriented or detached. When asked by law enforcement why she had called 911, she initially said she couldn't talk about it. Moments later, she allegedly said, "Instead of them doing it to me, I'm going to do it to them." When the officer asked, "Do what?" she answered, "Kill them all." She also reportedly claimed she hadn't called 911 about the children, but rather had called the devil. She said her children were with the devil and that they were dead. According to documents, she said, "Because you can't take me without me taking you." Reports confirm a weapon was recovered at or near the scene. The exact type, make, or caliber have not been fully detailed in publicly available reports. Deputies also noted the vehicle's position, windows or doors open, engine running. These details suggest she may have driven after the shooting, or attempted to, stopped at the gas station, and potentially called 911 from there. Investigators are piecing together whether the shooting happened before she drove or whether any of the injuries occurred in motion. The 2 children who were gravely ill injured were life-flighted to a Houston area hospital where they remain in serious but stable condition. The authorities have not released the names of those children publicly as of now. Romulus was taken into custody there at the gas station and subsequently moved to the sheriff's office for interrogation. Her bond was set at $14 million. She is facing 2 counts of murder for the children who died and 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for the survivors. That morning's horrors left a trail of questions. Where was help? What broke inside Oninda that she could see no path but this one? On that early morning in Angleton, Texas, the violence had already been done. The children lay in the car, 2 already beyond help, 2 critically wounded. But the moment of arrest marked a shift from chaos to consequence, from unanswered horror to the beginning of interrogation. Oninda Romelus was taken into custody at the scene. She did not flee. She did not collapse in tears. She stood, unsettled, guarded, while law enforcement agents converged. Her words in that moment would leave investigators stunned. "They're with the devil now. Instead of them doing it to me, I'm going to do it to them." These words, almost whispered, reverberated in the small interrogation room, in the minds of detectives, and through the corridors of a courtroom yet to come. The background fades, leaving only her face in sharp relief. Silence, then echo of her voice. "They're with the devil now." Court documents later detail a scene of paranoia and disorientation. While being booked and interviewed, she repeatedly looked toward the door, as though expecting someone, or something, to burst in. When initially questioned, she said she couldn't talk about what happened. But under pressure, she began to speak in fragments. Horrific, cryptic fragments. Investigators wrote that she claimed the children would kill her. In her supposed defense, she said, "Instead of them doing it to me, I'm going to do it to them." When asked to clarify, she replied, "Kill them all." She also contended that she hadn't called 911, that she had in fact called the devil. In her statements, she asserted the children were dead to her and with the devil. One investigator later wrote, "Much of what she said didn't make sense." To an outside observer, these statements might appear monstrous or utterly insane, and perhaps they were both. But to understand, we must consider what lies behind such lines. A forensic psychologist examining similar cases might observe that statements referencing the devil, the fear of being killed by one's own children, or the reversal of victimhood often point to deep psychosis, where reality becomes indistinct from delusion. Statements like these indicate deep psychosis, a separation from reality likely fueled by extreme stress and paranoia, an expert might note, especially when a person believes they're under existential threat, even from loved ones. Here, the line between protector and predator collapses. The mind, overwhelmed, flips roles. The mother becomes aggressor. The children become enemies. Romulus was charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And her bond was set at $14 million. At the moment of arrest, the case transformed from tragedy to investigation. And every word she spoke would be scrutinized for meaning, motive, and state of mind. We need to step into the minds of investigators and defense, dig into her past statements, and search for the motive. Was she hearing voices? Was she running from something real? Or something imagined? In the aftermath of the shooting, investigators returned again and again to those chilling fragments of speech. Each phrase was weighed, parsed, and dissected, as though they might hold the key to a mind unraveling. When asked why she made the 911 call, Romulus first said she couldn't talk about it. Later, in disjointed statements, she claimed she had called the devil, not 911. She said her children were dead to her, with the devil. She insisted, "'Cause you can't take me without me taking you." Such statements don't merely shock. They challenge our notions of what's real. A detective who interviewed Romulus later described her responses as not making any sense. She repeatedly glanced toward the door during questioning, as if anticipating intrusion. Court documents show she wavered between denial and cryptic admission. When pressed on what she meant by "kill them all," she offered few clarifications. Psychologists and profilers often say that when someone speaks of supernatural forces, voices, or persecution, especially tied to loved ones, it can signal psychotic break or severe delusional disorder. In such states, the boundary between internal and external collapses. Imagine a mind so burdened by fear, exhaustion, and isolation that it conjures an enemy within. One expert might say, hearing voices and attributing meaning to them, especially when tied to guilt or threat, is consistent with psychosis. When someone believes loved ones are with the devil, they are no longer just metaphors. They become the enemy in the mind's altered reality. In Romulus's case, the repetition of devil talk, dead to her assertions, and reversal of guilt she claiming she would be killed? A line with classic themes in psychiatric cases where the person suffers command hallucinations or delusional persecution. Yet we must emphasize, there is no publicly confirmed diagnosis at this stage. The statements are pieces of a puzzle, not a verdict. She had prior legal trouble. In 2022, she was arrested in Fayette County, Georgia for DUI, drugs, failure to maintain lane, and possession of less than 1 ounce of marijuana. She later pleaded guilty to the DUI charge. Could past stressors, the shame, legal pressure, fear of exposure, have layered upon others, weakening her psychological resilience? Possibly. Investigators also found in her home a staggering number of identification documents, social security cards, multiple IDs under various names, and what appeared to be equipment used to create or alter identity documents. This suggests a hidden life of shifting identity, secrets, and perhaps self-doubt about who she was. When you combine legal stress, identity instability, maternal pressure, and isolation, you have a milieu ripe for inner collapse. But in the dark recesses of her mind, these elements likely didn't stay separate. The devil she invoked. Was it symbolic of trauma? A monstrous projection of her despair? Or the evidence of genuine psychosis? We cannot know with certainty. But we can understand the architecture. Voices or thoughts become threats. Loved ones transform into adversaries. Self becomes cornered, prompting preemptive violence. In that space, there is no room for pleas, confusion, or clarity. Only one option, as her words suggested: kill them all. Once the immediate chaos of that morning settled, the gears of justice began to turn. Detectives, crime scene teams, forensic analysts all worked to piece together how 4 children came to be shot, 2 fatally, and how their own mother became the prime suspect. In the days that followed, law enforcement revealed the official charges. Oninda Romelus was charged with 2 counts of murder for the children who died, and 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for the survivors. Her bond was set at $14 million. The investigation would reveal more than just the shooting. Search warrants executed in her Montgomery County home uncovered materials pointing to counterfeit, fraud, and identity fabrication. Authorities reported that inside her home they found over 2 dozen social security cards, each with different names, more than 45 identification cards, multiple credit cards, laptops, tablets, printers, phones, devices potentially used to manufacture false documents, a box of ammunition, and multiple firearms components. The search warrant said the counterfeit ID documents were in various stages of manufacture, carrying different names, states, and photographs. Investigators also reviewed surveillance footage of a house across the street from her home showing activity in the early morning hours. People and children entering and exiting a vehicle around 2:39 a.m. Roughly 2 hours later, she would call deputies to the gas station, where the shooting scene would be discovered. Child Protective Services, CPS, is also investigating. The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services confirmed that Romelus had had contact with CPS on one other occasion, though the details remain confidential. Sheriff Bo Stallman publicly praised the quick response of deputies. He said that the quick actions of responding deputies likely saved at least 1 child's life. The Brazoria County Sheriff's Office also clarified that although she was arrested at the gas station, the shooting did not necessarily occur there. Crime scene reconstruction suggested the vehicle itself was likely where shots were fired. In the storm of this tragedy, there remained 2 children who survived, wounded, but alive. Their names have not been fully disclosed in public reporting, likely to protect their privacy during recovery. The 8-year-old boy and the 9-year-old girl were airlifted to a Houston area hospital in serious but stable condition. As of the latest reports, the siblings are being cared for under medical supervision, undergoing treatment, and protected by CPS oversight until permanent custody decisions are made. Across the community, grief and shock ripple outward. Neighbors, local pastors, bystanders, all struggle to reconcile what they thought they knew with the horror that unfolded. One neighbor said, in media coverage, "I saw her smiling with her kids. She seemed quiet, gentle. I never imagined something like this. In the media, local reporters covered the story with caution, balancing the need to inform with respect for the surviving children and the family's pain. In some neighborhoods, parents hugged their children tighter. Teachers spoke quietly to students about fear, safety, and the value of mental health. This tragedy didn't just impact one family. It reminded a community how fragile trust is, how quickly ordinary life can turn catastrophic, and how important it is to watch for silent signs in those around us. 2 lives lost forever. 2 lives forever altered. 4 children in one vehicle, 1 mother in darkness. In the days ahead, the courtroom will take over. Mental health experts will testify. Prosecutors and defense will clash over intent, sanity, motive. But before all that, we are left with the unanswerable. Why? Was Oninda Romelus the tragic mother who slipped past the point of rescue? Did she suffer a complete psychotic break? Or was this a catastrophic combination of silence, stress, shame, and desperation that ended in violence? We may never fully know. What we do know is this: the surviving children deserve compassion, healing, and a life reclaimed. A community must learn from this. Watch for signs, check in on parents, support mental health. And as viewers, we must honor the humanity behind the headlines. Because true crime isn't about shock. It's about understanding how darkness hides in daylight, how tragedy can come from love twisted by despair, and how we might prevent it next time by listening earlier. If this story moves you to question, to worry, to care, please hit the subscribe button. Like and share this video. Together we explore not just what crimes are committed, but why they are committed, so we might better guard our hearts and our communities. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay compassionate. Keep watching the shadows, but always keep the light.